I closed the hospital room door behind me for the last time. Gym bag already packed. Discharge papers folded in my pocket. 3 months. That's how long I'd been here after the semi-truck crossed the median on Highway 40. 3 months of surgeries, physical therapy, and watching my girlfriend Emma choose my best friend David over me through every painful step. "Noah, wait!" Emma's voice came from down the hallway. I didn't stop. My left leg still dragged slightly, the limp a permanent reminder of shattered bones and torn ligaments. But I could walk. That was enough. "Please, just listen." I turned at the elevator, meeting her eyes for what I decided would be the last time. "There's nothing to say, Emma. You made your choice." It wasn't like that. Her hands twisted together, the same nervous gesture that used to make me want to comfort her. Now it just looked like guilt. "David was just there for me when I was what? Fighting to walk again?" I pressed the elevator button. I know exactly what happened. I watched it happen from that bed. The first week after the accident, she'd come every day, cried at my bedside, held my hand through the pain medication fog. Then David started visiting too, my best friend since college, the guy who'd introduced us at that rooftop party 3 years ago. Week 2, they started arriving together. Small talk became longer conversations outside my room. Coffee runs together. Inside jokes I wasn't part of. Week 3, I woke from a post-surgery nap to find them holding hands in the visitor chairs. They broke apart when they noticed my eyes open, but the damage was done. The truth was written in their flushed faces and guilty silences. I didn't confront them, didn't demand explanations or cry betrayal. I simply started planning my exit from both their lives. I used the long hours alone in that hospital bed to research apartments I could afford on my own, to figure out how to transition my work fully remote, to imagine a future that didn't include either of them. "You could have been honest," I said, as the elevator dinged. "That's all I ever wanted." "We didn't mean to, but you did." The doors opened. "And now I'm going to live my life without either of you in it. David feels terrible about this." I stepped into the elevator. "Good. Noah, we can work through this. The 3 of us can sit down and—" "There is no 3 of us anymore. There's you and him, and there's me. And those are 2 separate worlds now." I hit the button for the ground floor. "Don't call me. Don't text. Don't show up at my place when I get one. We're done." As the doors closed on her stricken face, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Freedom. My brother Lucas picked me up at the main entrance in his Jeep. He didn't ask questions, just helped me load my bag, and drove toward his apartment in the Riverside district. "You can stay as long as you need," he said, navigating through afternoon traffic. "I appreciate it, just until I find my own place. Emma called me last night." He glanced over. "Wanted me to convince you to talk to her." "And?" "I told her you're done talking." Lucas had always been protective. 2 years older, built like our father, broad shoulders, solid frame. Also told David if I see him, "We're going to have a problem." "Don't." I watched the city scroll past. "He's not worth your time either. Bastard didn't even have the guts to visit after you saw them together." True. David had stopped coming to the hospital entirely after that day. Sent one text. "I'm sorry, man. This wasn't supposed to happen." I'd blocked his number without responding. The shared apartment Emma and I had rented was in the Old Town district. Lucas drove me there 2 days later with his friend's truck. Emma had texted that she'd be out for the afternoon, giving me space to collect my things. Coward's kindness. The place looked the same, but felt foreign. My books still on the shelf, my coffee mug in the dish rack, my running shoes by the door, the ones I'd never worn since the accident, the ones that mocked my current limitations. Let's make this quick, Lucas said, grabbing boxes from the truck. We worked efficiently. Clothes, electronics, personal items. I left behind anything that felt shared. The coffee maker we'd bought together, the throw pillows she'd picked out, the framed photos from trips I could barely remember taking. Let her keep the ghosts of who we'd been. In the bedroom closet, I found the ring box tucked behind my winter coats. The engagement ring I'd bought 2 weeks before the accident. 1.5 carats, princess cut. The one she'd pointed out months earlier while we were window shopping. I'd been planning to propose on her birthday, had the whole thing mapped out. I pocketed the box without comment. Lucas saw, but said nothing. That everything? He asked as we loaded the last box. I took one final look around. 3 years of my life contained in this space. 3 years of cooking dinner together, of lazy Sunday mornings, of believing I'd found my person. All of it rendered meaningless by 3 weeks of hospital chairs and secret glances. Yeah, I said. That's everything that matters. Lucas's apartment in the Riverside district was a 2-bedroom loft with exposed brick and too much sports memorabilia. He cleared space in the guest room, and I settled into a new routine. Physical therapy 3 times a week at the clinic downtown. Online contract work from my laptop. Graphic design projects that let me rebuild my savings while I figured out my next move. Long walks along the river as my leg grew stronger, each step a small victory against the doctors who'd said I might never walk without assistance. The first month was the hardest. My body ached constantly. The exercises were brutal, pushing muscles and joints that screamed for rest. But the physical pain was almost welcome. It gave me something tangible to fight against, something I could measure and overcome. I sold the engagement ring to a jewelry buyer in the Diamond District. Took the cash and put it toward a security deposit on my own place. Didn't tell Lucas what I'd sold. Some losses were too personal to share. No social media, no mutual friends, no looking back. I blocked everyone connected to Emma and David. Old college friends who'd probably heard some version of the story. Colleagues from my old office job who'd been to our dinner parties. Even Emma's sister Rachel, who'd texted me twice asking to talk. I changed my number, updated my email, created clean boundaries between who I'd been and who I was becoming. 6 weeks after leaving the hospital, I started frequenting a coffee shop called Grounded near Lucas's building. Good espresso, quiet atmosphere, reliable Wi-Fi, the kind of place where you could sit for hours without anyone bothering you. The barista, a woman with silver-streaked hair named Diane, learned my order. Black coffee, extra hot, and whatever pastry she recommended. You're becoming predictable, she said one Wednesday morning, already preparing my drink. Predictable is underrated. Stable, maybe. But predictable? That's just boring. She smiled. Try the raspberry scone today. My daughter made them. The coffee shop became my anchor. Every Wednesday, same table in the corner by the window. I'd work on design projects, rebranding for a local restaurant, website mock-ups for a non-profit, logo designs for startups that couldn't afford big agencies. The work was good, and it was mine. No office politics, no commute, no David stopping by my desk to chat about the game last night, pretending he wasn't secretly meeting my girlfriend after work. I'd just settled into my usual corner table when someone's tote bag caught my laptop's power cord, sending my coffee dangerously close to the edge. Oh God, I'm so sorry. A woman lunged for the cup, steadying it before disaster struck. I'm such a disaster in the mornings. I looked up. She was maybe 30, with dark hair pulled into a messy bun, wearing paint-splattered overalls and an apologetic smile. No harm done, I said. Still. She set her own coffee down on my table. "Let me buy you another one, as an apology." "Really, it's fine. I insist." She was already heading to the counter before I could protest further. She returned with a fresh coffee and a muffin. "Diane says you're here every Wednesday. I'm usually here Mondays and Fridays, so our paths haven't crossed." She extended her hand. "Olivia." "Noah." "Can I sit? I promise not to knock over anything else." I gestured to the chair across from me. "Sure." Olivia taught art at the community center downtown and painted murals on the side. She was working on a proposal for the city, a massive piece covering the side of an abandoned building on 5th Street, something to revitalize the neighborhood and give local kids a sense of pride in their community. "The city council is skeptical," she said, stirring sugar into her coffee. "They think street art equals graffiti equals crime. Never mind that study after study shows the opposite." "What's your pitch?" "That beauty matters. That people take care of places they're proud of. That art isn't decoration. It's a statement that this place and these people are worth investing in." She grinned. "Also that it's cheaper than they think, and I've already got half the paint donated." We talked for an hour before she had to leave for a class. She was funny without trying, passionate about art as community activism, and completely unaware of my recent history. It was refreshing, talking to someone who knew nothing about the accident, or Emma, or the betrayal. Someone who saw only who I was now, not who I'd been. "Same time next week?" she asked, gathering her things. "I'm here every Wednesday." "Then I'll switch my schedule." She did. The next Wednesday, we talked for 2 hours about everything and nothing. Her disastrous attempts at pottery, I'm a painter for a reason, and my secret love of terrible action movies. The Wednesday after that, we walked along the river after coffee, and she told me about growing up in a military family, always moving, never quite belonging anywhere until she discovered art could be a home. I told her about my design work, carefully editing around the accident and hospital stay. Just that I'd recently gone freelance, was rebuilding my client base, enjoying the freedom of working for myself. "You're limping," she observed as we crossed the pedestrian bridge. "Old injury, car accident last year. Must have been serious." It was. I kept my tone light. "But I'm here now." She didn't push for details, just adjusted her pace to match mine without making it obvious, the way someone does when they're being considerate without drawing attention to it. I appreciated that more than she could know. The Wednesdays became the highlight of my week. I found myself thinking about things to tell Olivia, saving up funny observations or interesting articles to share. Lucas noticed. "You've been smiling at your phone," he said one evening over pizza. "Have not." "Have too. You've got that dopey look people get when they're texting someone they like." "We're just friends." "Sure." He grabbed another slice. "And I'm just a casual football fan." Lucas was right, of course. Somewhere between the coffee shop meetings and river walks, Olivia had become more than just a pleasant distraction. She'd become someone I actively wanted to spend time with, someone whose opinion mattered, someone who made me feel like the person I was becoming was worth knowing. 3 months into our Wednesday tradition, Olivia invited me to the unveiling of her mural, a massive piece covering the side of a formerly abandoned building on 5th Street. The city council had approved her proposal after she'd lobbied for 6 months, attending every meeting, building support among neighborhood groups, proving that she wasn't some idealistic artist but a professional with a vision and a plan. The design incorporated the neighborhood's history. Old factory workers from the industrial era, modern families representing the community today, symbols of renewal and growth woven throughout. It was stunning. Bold colors, intricate detail, somehow both celebratory and contemplative. "It's incredible," I said, standing in the crowd gathered for the ribbon cutting. "Couldn't have done it without my team." She introduced me to her fellow artists: Jerome, a retired teacher who specialized in portraits; Keisha, a college student with a gift for abstract design; and Tom, a former graffiti artist turned community advocate. "You're the Wednesday coffee guy," Keisha said, grinning. "Liv talks about you constantly." Olivia blushed. "I do not." "Does too," Jerome added. "Every Monday it's Noah thinks this and Noah suggested that." I caught Olivia's eye. She looked embarrassed, but not unhappy about being called out. The mayor gave a speech about community investment and urban renewal. Local news cameras filmed the ribbon cutting. Kids from the neighborhood posed for photos in front of the mural. It was a good day, the kind that reminded you why art mattered, why beauty mattered, why fighting for things you believed in was worth the effort. After the ceremony, we walked to a nearby restaurant, just the two of us. The Italian place with the patio seating and the overly enthusiastic waiters. Over pasta and wine, she asked the question I'd been expecting. "So what's your story, Noah? And I mean the real one, not the edited version." I set down my fork. "What makes you think there's more?" "Because you're careful. With your words, your boundaries, your past." She leaned forward. "I'm not asking you to share anything you're not ready for, but I want you to know you can." So I told her. About the accident on Highway 40, the way the truck had come out of nowhere, the moment of impact that changed everything. The hospital stay that stretched 3 months. The surgeries to rebuild my shattered leg. The physical therapy that pushed me past every limit I thought I had. And Emma. And David, the way I'd watched them fall for each other while I was learning to walk again. The choice I'd made to walk away from both of them rather than fight for scraps of loyalty they clearly didn't feel. Olivia listened without interruption. When I finished, she reached across the table and took my hand. "I'm sorry that happened to you. I'm not looking for sympathy." "Good, because that's not what I'm offering." She squeezed my fingers. "I'm just acknowledging that it sucked, and you handled it with more grace than most people would have." I walked away. "That's not grace, that's just survival." "It's both," she smiled. "And for what it's worth, their loss is definitely my gain." We both started dating officially after that night. Real dates, not just Wednesday coffee meetings, dinners at restaurants we'd been wanting to try, a concert at the outdoor amphitheater where we sat on the lawn and shared a bottle of wine, a terrible horror movie where we laughed more than we screamed. Weekend mornings at the farmer's market, picking out vegetables neither of us knew how to cook properly. Olivia's apartment was in the arts district, a studio filled with canvases and paint supplies and controlled chaos. The walls were covered with her work, some finished, some in progress, all of it vibrant and alive. Her kitchen was tiny but functional. Her bathroom had paint stains in the sink that no amount of scrubbing would remove. "Fair warning," she said the first time I came over. "I'm a terrible cook." "Can't be worse than me." Challenge accepted. We attempted stir-fry and managed to trigger the smoke alarm twice, ordered pizza instead, and ate it on her balcony overlooking the street below, watching people drift between galleries and bars. "Tell me about before," she said, picking pepperoni off her slice. "Before the accident. Who were you?" I thought about it. Comfortable, I guess. I had a good job at a design firm downtown. Nice apartment. Steady relationship. Everything looked right from the outside. But inside I was coasting, going through motions. Emma wanted me to propose, so I bought a ring. She wanted to move to the suburbs eventually, so I started looking at houses I couldn't afford. I let her make all the decisions about our life because it seemed easier than figuring out what I actually wanted. And now? Now I know what I want. Work that's mine. Space to figure things out. Someone who... I stopped. Someone who what? Someone who sees me as I am, not as who they want me to be. She kissed me then, tasting like pizza and wine and something that felt like home. 8 months after leaving the hospital, I moved into my own apartment in the Riverside district, a 1-bedroom with a home office for my design work and enough space to feel like mine. Lucas helped me move, same as before, but this time the boxes contained a future instead of a past. Business was picking up. Word of mouth bringing steady clients. A tech startup hired me for their complete visual identity. A local bookstore wanted new signage and promotional materials. A wedding photographer needed a website redesign. Small projects that added up to sustainable income and growing reputation. My leg was stronger, the limp barely noticeable unless I was tired or the weather changed. I could walk 5 miles along the river now. Could climb stairs without planning my route around elevators. Could almost forget, sometimes, that my body had been broken and rebuilt. Lucas approved of Olivia immediately. "She's good for you," he said during a dinner at his place, his girlfriend Jenna making way too much food as usual. "You smile more." "I smile. Plenty." "You smile like you mean it now." He refilled my beer. "That's different." Lucas was right. For the first time since the accident, I wasn't just surviving. I was actually living, making plans beyond the next physical therapy appointment, thinking about what I wanted my life to look like in 5 years instead of just getting through the next 5 minutes. Then, 14 months after I'd walked out of that hospital, my phone rang with an unknown number. I almost didn't answer. "Noah?" Emma's voice. "Please don't hang up." I should have. Instead, I waited. I know I have no right to call, but... She took a shaky breath. "David and I broke up 3 months ago. I needed time to process everything before reaching out." "Okay. I made a terrible mistake. With him, with you, with all of it." The words tumbled out fast, desperate. "I was scared when you were hurt. Seeing you in that hospital bed, not knowing if you'd walk again, I couldn't handle it. David was safe because he wasn't the one in danger. But the whole time, I knew I was making the worst mistake of my life. Emma, I want to make this right, to apologize properly. Maybe we could meet for coffee and talk. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I need you to know how sorry I am. How much I regret everything." "No." Silence. Then, "Please, just give me a chance to..." "I gave you chances. Every day in that hospital was a chance to be honest, to talk to me instead of him, to choose me when it actually mattered." I kept my voice level, factual. "You chose differently. That's fine. People make choices. But I've moved on. Is there someone else?" Her voice broke slightly. "Yes." "Oh." A long pause. "Are you happy?" I thought of Olivia, probably at her studio right now, working on her next project. The way she laughed at her own terrible jokes. How she pushed me to take professional risks with my design work. The quiet comfort of Sunday mornings reading newspapers at Grounded. The way she'd started keeping a toothbrush at my place, and I'd started keeping paint supplies at hers. "Yeah," I said. "I really am." "Then I'm glad." She sounded like she meant it. "You deserved better than what I gave you." We both deserve to move forward. I hope you find what you're looking for, Emma. I really do. But it's not going to be with me. Noah, for what it's worth, I am sorry. Not just about David, but about all of it. about not being brave enough to stand by you when you needed me, about choosing comfort over commitment. You were always the better person in our relationship. I wasn't better. I was just different. We wanted different things, and it took a crisis to make that obvious. After we hung up, I sat on my couch for a while, processing. No anger, no regret, just a sense of completion, like closing a book I'd finished reading. Emma was part of my history now, not my present. She'd made her choice, and I'd made mine, and both of us were living with the consequences. My phone buzzed with a text from Olivia. "Finished early. Dinner at my place? I promise not to burn anything this time." I smiled and typed back, "I'll bring wine and backup takeout menus." That night, after Olivia successfully made chicken stir-fry without setting off the smoke alarm, a personal record, she declared, we sat on her balcony overlooking the city lights. "Emma called today," I said. Olivia looked over. "Yeah? How'd that go?" She wanted to apologize, to see if we could reconnect. And I told her I'd moved on. I took her hand. "That I'm happy." "Are you?" She studied my face. "Happy, I mean, not just recovered, but actually happy." "I am." I kissed her paint-stained knuckles. "More than I thought I'd be after everything." "Good." She leaned her head on my shoulder. "Because I'm pretty happy too. And I'm falling in love with you, if you haven't noticed." I noticed. I pulled her closer. "I'm falling in love with you too." We sat there for a long time, watching the city lights blur and sharpen, feeling the weight of that confession settle into something solid and real. 18 months after the accident, Olivia moved in with me. Her lease was up, and my place had more space for her art supplies. We negotiated territory like adults. Her canvases in the spare bedroom that became her studio, my home office staying mine, the living room a shared space we decorated together with a mix of her colorful aesthetic and my minimalist preferences. "We look like a before and after photo," she joked, surveying the eclectic result. "Or like two people who actually like each other enough to compromise." That, too. Living together revealed all the small intimacies I'd missed with Emma. Olivia sang off-key in the shower, left paint smudges on light switches, stole the covers but ran warm at night, which balanced out. She learned I was grumpy before coffee and gave me space in the mornings. I learned she needed to decompress after teaching and gave her quiet time when she got home. We fought sometimes. About money. She was terrible at tracking expenses, and I was maybe too rigid about budgeting. About social obligations. She wanted to say yes to every event, and I needed more alone time. About the future, where we wanted to live long-term, whether my freelance work was sustainable or if I should find more stable income. But we fought fair. No name-calling. No bringing up past mistakes to win arguments. No walking out or giving silent treatment. We'd both been in relationships that ended badly enough to know what not to do. 2 years after the accident, I proposed to Olivia at the coffee shop where we'd met. Diane was in on the plan, having baked a special raspberry scone with "Marry Me" written in icing. I'd arranged it weeks in advance, swearing her to secrecy, choosing a Wednesday morning when I knew the shop would be full of regulars who'd witnessed our entire courtship. When Olivia opened the pastry bag and saw it, she laughed and cried simultaneously. "Is this real?" she asked, as I got down on one knee in front of the Wednesday morning regulars. "As real as it gets." I pulled out the ring, not the one I'd bought for Emma, but a new one. A different style entirely, something that felt like Olivia. Vintage gold with a sapphire center stone, unique and bold and beautiful. Yes. Obviously, yes. The other customers applauded. Diane came around the counter with champagne she'd been keeping cold. It was perfect in its imperfection, just like us. We got married 6 months later in a small ceremony at the Botanical Gardens. Lucas was my best man. No hesitation, no complicated history. Just my brother, standing beside me as I married someone who'd chosen to know me at my most guarded and loved me anyway. Olivia's parents flew in from Virginia. Her younger brother gave a toast about how she'd always been the artistic rebel of the family, and he was glad she'd found someone who appreciated that. My mother cried through the whole ceremony. My father, a man of few words, pulled me aside afterward and said, "You did good, son. This one's a keeper." At the reception, as Olivia danced with her father to some sappy country song she'd insisted on, Lucas handed me a beer. "You did good, little brother." Got lucky. Nah, he clinked his bottle against mine. You made a choice that day in the hospital, to walk away from people who didn't value you and toward a life you built yourself. That's not luck. That's courage. Maybe he was right. Maybe the bravest thing I'd ever done wasn't surviving the accident or the physical recovery. It was closing that hospital door and choosing to believe I deserved better. Choosing to be alone rather than accept half-hearted love. Choosing to rebuild everything from scratch instead of clinging to the ruins of what I'd had. Olivia spun across the dance floor toward me, laughing, radiant, completely present. She extended her hand. "Dance with your wife, Noah." I took her hand and let her pull me into the crowd. My leg ached slightly. It always would during long days. But I didn't care. I was exactly where I was supposed to be, with someone who'd never once made me feel like I needed to be anyone other than who I was. That night, lying in our hotel room, Olivia traced the scars on my leg, the ones from the surgeries. "Do you ever think about how different things would be?" she asked. "If the accident hadn't happened?" "Sometimes. I'd probably still be with Emma, still friends with David, still living a life that looked right but felt hollow." "You think it was hollow?" "I think I didn't know the difference between comfortable and happy." I caught her hand. "Now I do." "For the record," she said, kissing the scar tissue, "I'm grateful for every single thing that brought you to that coffee shop, even the painful parts, because they brought me you. Me too." 3 years post-accident, my design. Business was thriving. I'd hired 2 junior designers, recent graduates hungry to prove themselves, and moved into a proper office space in the Arts District close to Olivia's studio. We could meet for lunch, walk home together, exist in the same orbit even while doing separate work. The business had expanded beyond what I'd imagined. Corporate clients now, bigger budgets, more complex projects. But I kept taking the small jobs too. The local businesses and non-profits that reminded me why I'd gone freelance in the first place. Control over my work, connection to my community. The ability to say no to projects that didn't align with my values. Olivia's murals were getting recognized nationally. She'd been commissioned for pieces in Portland, Austin, and Denver. Her work appeared in street art magazines and urban planning journals. She gave talks at universities about art as community development. She was building something significant, and I got to watch it happen. We bought a house in the Riverside district with a studio for her and an office for me. A small backyard where we planted vegetables we mostly forgot to water. A porch where we drank coffee on weekend mornings and watched the neighborhood wake up. Life wasn't perfect. We argued about whose turn it was to do dishes. My leg hurt on rainy days. Olivia's travel schedule sometimes meant weeks apart. Money was tighter than we wanted. The house needed repairs we couldn't afford yet. We were tired a lot, balancing work and marriage and the basic maintenance of being adults. But we'd built something real, something that didn't crumble under pressure. I ran into David once, randomly, at a hardware store in the Old Town district. I was picking up supplies for a bathroom renovation. He was alone, looked older, carried himself like someone bearing weight. "Noah." He stopped in the aisle, paint roller in hand. "Hey." "David?" An awkward pause. Then, "I heard you got married. Congratulations." "Thanks. I wanted to reach out so many times over the years, to apologize properly, but I figured you didn't want to hear from me." "You figured right." He nodded, accepting that. "Emma called once, said you two talked." "Briefly. We lasted about 6 months after you left the hospital. Turns out a relationship built on betrayal doesn't have great foundations." A bitter laugh. "Who knew?" I should have felt satisfaction. Instead, I just felt distant, like watching a movie about someone else's life. David was a stranger now, someone I'd once known who'd made choices that led him away from my orbit. "I hope you're doing okay," I said, and meant it. Better than I deserve. He shifted the paint supplies in his arms. "I'm in therapy now, working through a lot of things, finally starting to understand why I did what I did. Not that it excuses anything. It doesn't. I know. But for what it's worth, I'm glad you found happiness. Really. You always deserved that more than either of us gave you credit for. We all deserve happiness. Sometimes we just have to be brave enough to claim it." We parted ways there in the hardware store, and I didn't look back. Some chapters close without dramatic confrontations or profound revelations. Sometimes people just become part of your past, neither villains nor heroes, just humans who made choices that led everyone to different destinations. When I got home, Olivia was in her studio, working on sketches for the Denver mural. Paint-stained and focused, exactly how I loved seeing her. I told her about running into David. "How do you feel?" she asked, setting down her charcoal. "Nothing, really. It's like seeing someone you went to high school with. You remember they were important once, but you can't quite remember why." She pulled me close, leaving charcoal smudges on my shirt. "That's growth, baby." Or indifference. Same thing sometimes. She kissed me softly. "You know what I love about you? My tolerance for your inability to keep art supplies where they belong. That too. But I love that you don't carry bitterness. You could have let what they did make you cynical or closed off. Instead, you just moved forward. You didn't let them take your capacity for trust. I had help with that. Maybe. But you did the work. That night, I thought about the person I'd been in that hospital bed, watching the woman I loved fall for my best friend. How small and powerless I'd felt. How the only control I had was deciding who I'd be on the other side of the pain. I'd chosen to be someone who walked away from toxicity, who built new relationships on honesty, who believed that the right people would stay even when things got hard, who understood that love wasn't about grand gestures or perfect moments, but about choosing each other day after day, especially on the hard days. And I'd been proven right. 5 years after the accident, Olivia and I stood in Grounded on a Wednesday morning, our daughter Zoe in a carrier on Olivia's chest. She was 6 months old, all dark hair and curious eyes like her mother, with my tendency to observe everything quietly before reacting. Diane, now semi-retired but still working Wednesdays, cooed over the baby. "She's going to be an artist like her mama." "Or a designer like her dad," I countered. "Why not both?" Olivia adjusted Zoe's tiny hat, the one with the ridiculous pom-pom that we both secretly loved. Parenthood had been harder than I'd expected. The sleepless nights, the constant worry, the way your heart now existed outside your body in the form of a tiny, vulnerable human. But it had also been better than I'd imagined. The way Zoe smiled when she saw us, her fierce concentration while examining her own hands, the weight of her sleeping against my chest, trusting me completely. Walking out of the coffee shop, our family together, I felt the kind of gratitude that only comes from surviving something terrible and finding something beautiful on the other side, not despite the pain, but somehow because of it. The accident had destroyed the life I'd been living, yes, but it had also cleared space for the life I was meant to live. My phone buzzed with a message from Lucas. "Sunday dinner at my place? Jenna wants to introduce Zoe to her famous lasagna, by which I mean we're ordering Italian and pretending Jenna made it." I laughed and showed Olivia the text. "Your brother's an idiot," she said fondly. "Yeah, but he's my idiot." As we walked toward our car, Zoe sleeping peacefully against Olivia's chest, I thought about the moment I'd closed that hospital room door. How final it had felt. How uncertain. I'd had no idea if I'd ever walk without pain, if I'd ever trust someone again, if I'd ever build a life worth living. But I'd recovered alone, and in doing so I'd learned what I was capable of. I'd learned that I could survive loss and betrayal, that I could rebuild from nothing, that I could choose myself even when it was hard, even when it was lonely, even when everyone expected me to forgive and forget and take the easy path. I'd recovered from broken bones and torn ligaments, but more than that, I'd recovered my belief in my own worth. My understanding that being chosen once by the wrong person mattered less than being chosen every day by the right one. Emma had chosen David after the accident and left me behind. In doing so, she'd given me the greatest gift, the freedom to discover what I actually wanted, and the space to find someone who wanted the same thing. The courage to demand more from love than just showing up. The wisdom to recognize that some relationships end not because anyone is evil, but because people grow in different directions. The scars on my leg would always be there. So would the slight limp on cold days. But they were just part of my story now, not the whole narrative. Physical evidence of a time when everything fell apart, and I chose to build something better from the pieces. The whole narrative was this: a man who walked away from people who hurt him, built a life he was proud of, and found love with someone who saw his scars and loved him anyway. A man who learned that recovery isn't just about healing what's broken, but about becoming someone new in the process, someone stronger, wiser, more certain of what matters. And that narrative, I'd discovered, was more than enough. It was everything.